normally, which is it's his job, just 10% less mad.
Yes.
Okay, and we're live. So welcome, social yet distanced listeners. And tonight we're talking to Peadar O'Donoghue, writer, photographer, publisher, badger about town. And we're going to be talking about writing, publishing, and being a scourge of literary elites everywhere. So welcome, Peadar.
Thank you very much, Fran. And thanks to Jack as well for allowing me to air my weirdness on the internet, which is quite extraordinary.
We're all sort of friends here, I think. We're all kind of weird together. Yeah. You know, it's kind of.
I feel like I'm at my granny's. Or
more
accurately, you're at your granddad's, but yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. So we're going to start by talking about Poetry Bus magazine, which has been going since 2010. See, I was way out, I guess, 2014, but it's actually 2010. Wow.
Yeah. It feels like about 1910, but it was 2010.
It does, because so much has happened. It feels like such a long time ago. But I was reading on the website about how it grew out of a writing task on your Total Fecking Egypt blogspot.
Yeah. They were the days, the blog days. Do you remember blogs?
I do remember blogs. Yeah, I had a live.
Like remembering VCRs or 8-track cassette decks or something. But no, it was brilliant at the time because the internet to me was kind of new then. And it was just amazing that you could, you know, connect with people and say things and somebody would actually listen to you. You know, I suppose like the early days of CB radio or something, where suddenly you could just communicate. It was fantastic. I mean, blogs are a bit, I don't know what they are now, but at the time they were cutting edge, like, you know.
You felt like somebody as well. And it was sort of like the idea that not just that somebody was listening, but that anybody might be listening, you know, that you could reach people all over the world. And then, but generally, I mean, you kind of had a really positive experience where people came and it gathered momentum, and the kind of magazine sort of grew out of that desire to give these people who weren't getting published or platformed and didn't have a voice, that kind of space.
Yes.
Whereas my experience of blogging was more sort of dirty old men rubbing their knees at me.
Yeah, I had a lot of that too, Fran, actually, to be fair now, you know. Well, I was mainly the one doing the knee rubbing.
Yeah. Oh, God. But but in all seriousness, I think that the idea that kind of kicked the magazine off, that there was going to be this space that was, you know, sort of truly egalitarian and equal opportunities for everyone was kind of really important. And it sounds like, and thus the magazine was born, that it happened in the kind of like click, but I'm imagining that it was much more involved and arduous than that.
It kind of wasn't more involved and arduous than that. It was really weird because we just did the weekly. It was because Monday is a shit day, so we just, or I thought we just brighten Monday up a bit by all kind of getting together, and the idea was to write a poem across the world at exactly the same time, because I just thought there would be some kind of weird human fucking telepathy or something in the zeitgeist that we would all, you know, write roughly the same kind of thing. Of course we didn't. It was totally diverse. But anyway, it went on for about a year. And after a while, I mean, a lot of it was crap, including my own. But after a while, some of it was pretty good, you know. And I think at the time, I wasn't really into poetry, but I was enough into poetry to realize it was really hard to get published. And that a lot of people wouldn't be inclined to even try, that it wasn't something that was for them. And I just thought, well, why don't we just do our own magazine? We're never going to get into a magazine, so why don't we just do our own? And everybody really loved the idea. And because I was naive and stupid, and I'll be honest now, like I'm 137, but I'm still a punk. And you know, that punk ethos, if you don't like something or somebody else is doing something, you don't like it, just do it yourself. Do it better if you can, but just do it. So it seemed perfectly natural to me because I'd seen friends, I had friends who just started bands and, you know, just did things. And it was sort of in the psyche just to do things. So we just did it, and it was fine because I didn't realize I was doing anything. I just thought, fuck it, we'll just do a magazine. And everybody said, that's a great idea. Do you want some money? And yes, please, I'll have some money. I mean, not arts councils or anything, but just individuals thought, oh, this is a good idea. You know, we'll help you with the printing costs. And they did. And we printed the first one. It was only small and it was stapled together. And funnily enough, because we're just over our 10th anniversary, I've been looking back through the issues. And I have to say, it's fucking good. The first one, I think we probably nailed it and should have given up. It's just, it's fun. Honestly, it's fantastic. Like, and the artwork in it and everything, because at the time we were mad into having the artwork and everything. We can't afford artwork now, sadly. But honestly, it's a gem. It's a beauty. I love it.
They're extremely beautiful, the Poetry Bus magazines. They have quite a collection of them, and they always go on my shelves. I stick most of my other magazines, like the big names included, like I just stuff them under the bed in boxes. I'm like, well, I'll look at them when I need them. But the Poetry Buses are on the shelves because they are actually really beautiful. And there's this kind of like, there's this beautiful kind of like tactile kind of pleasure of the book and the artwork, but also it's like you never know what you're going to get. No. And you're going to be going through and you never know what kind of thing you're going to read, what kind of a poem. There could be something sort of like really kind of snappy and punky next to something really meditative and kind of haunting. Yes. And it's just that kind of like mixture. It feels really alive in a way that a lot of kind of like journals don't.
That's really nice to hear. And I guess that's again because we don't really know what we're doing. We probably don't really know what a proper good poem is. We just put in what we like. You know, that's literally it. If we like it, it goes in. It doesn't matter who you are or who you aren't. Or, I mean, we have rejected some quite big names and they have taken it quite badly, actually. You know? And then we put in just everybody and anybody. But that's the beauty of it. I think the main talent we have is not really knowing what we're doing. Yeah. That's the key. So we're just doing it, you know.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, it's kind of like us with the podcast. We'll just make it up as we go along. It's fine. Oh, how hard can it be? How hard can it be?
Yes.
We'll see how hard can it be. But yeah, I think it's great that you've done this kind of like, it is a print publication, because, you know, I have some people, you know, like young people in my life who were kind of digital natives, as they like to call themselves. And they're like, well, you know, why do you not you save so much money if you just did it online? And you're like, well, but you know, and I think like being online, I don't know if they find the same sort of kind of situation in Ireland, but like then you've got like the big kind of the kind of big elites, the big magazines. They're like, well, if it's online, it's not really proper. They're all for digital publications, but they'll also use it to kind of surreptitiously exclude you. So I love the idea that there's this like really well-made thing that can be in bookshops and be in all those spaces and just like fighting for the right to take up space.
Yes, funnily enough, we thought that too, that we'd actually try and sort of compete with them on their turn. Not initially we didn't, but eventually we thought we can make this as good as a Stinging Fly, or I don't know, they're all crap really. Any of those magazines, you know, and I think we have, and I think they don't like it. I know they ignore us totally, but I'm sure they're aware of us. Yeah. And we just weren't allowed in at any level, you know. And yet I think you could put our magazine against any of those names and, you know, they'd look okay. And I've lost the thread of what I was saying now. But you were saying about internet kind of presence of things and them looking down on it. Yeah, they will always do that. They will always find a way of elevating themselves against whatever new thing might come along, or just anything. They have to make sure that they protect their little coven that they have, and that nothing can touch that. So the internet really is probably the most egalitarian. I mean, it's also the most awful thing, but really, you know, so egalitarian because anybody has access to it and anybody can just set things up. And I think that's fantastic. Yes, there's rubbish. There's a lot of rubbish, but I mean, there's a lot of print rubbish. Yeah. So you just have to be selective, you know. But it's just the ultimate kind of leveler, the internet. You know, even politically, people are getting a voice that they never had before. We can lobby and we can pressurize and people can mobilize and it's global, and there's information, and it's power. It's fantastic. It's crap and it's fantastic. But I mean, the combustion engine is crap and it's fantastic. Television is crap and it's fantastic. You just have to sort of take the eclectic bit, or just be eclectic in your taste and take the good bits out of everything. And the internet has so much good, so much opportunity, like this fantastic broadcast.
Yeah, thank you. And other sort of like really great kind of initiatives as well. I don't know if like, because I've been doing quite a few kind of online, not necessarily readings, but I've been going to things and listening to other people. And I think kind of lockdown has sort of forced people slightly to sort of do that a bit more and to become more international and to really kind of like use the technology that's always been there. Like, you could have always done this, dude. You could have always had this free event that anyone can access, providing they have a computer or a phone. You could have always done this, but you chose not to. Why are you only using it now?
Yes, it's been a fantastic opportunity to see as well, to see people you'd never see. And quite often free now for some reason, which is brilliant. You know, it's brought everyone together, because we're all stuck in and there's nothing happening in real life, you know, live. So everything's gone on the internet, and suddenly you can just attend readings, you know, that normally you'd never ever get a chance to see. It's brilliant. I hope in a way we keep lots of that, you know, after lockdown is finished. I'm sure we won't. I'm sure it'll go back to elite venues and big ticket prices. But, you know, for now, it's been brilliant.
It has. It's actually been really good. And it's good for sort of like, not just in terms of like, you know, kind of geographically bringing more people in. You know, I can see people and chat to friends and attend readings in the States, which I couldn't do before, and vice versa.
Yes.
But it's also in terms of people who have, you know, social anxiety disorder or people with disabilities. And you're thinking, this should always have been an option. I can't quite believe that we're in where you have all this technology, and yet you are just excluding this whole swathe of people by having a venue that's, you know, in central London, especially over here. Everything is central London, you know. And if you can't access central London because you can't get on a freaking tube, then you're cut out by default, and that's so wrong.
Excluded. So maybe even if they do go back to the nice venues and having a live audience, because to be fair, you know, there is nothing quite like being at something live, maybe they could like broadcast it as well, so they could get their ticket sales and have the auditorium full, but also then maybe a hugely reduced, almost nominal fee, let people watch it on the internet as well.
Yeah, I think people should do that. I think definitely. But there's, you know, there's got to be. I want the Zoom poetry party to be a thing where people are watching poets read around their mates' houses with like bowls of popcorn and like beer, like you would watch the football, or, you know.
Yeah, and that could happen, because as you say, at the moment we're all doing everything very solitary. Yeah, why not all get together in a room and watch something? Wouldn't that be cool?
I think that would be amazing. Yeah, exactly. And Slag, imagine, because you could go to the TSE Awards, for example, and you could throw shade at everybody on there. Nobody could hear you. There would be no comeback.
You could throw whatever you have in your hand, popcorn, beer. You could actually throw it at the screen, and it'd be fine.
There'd be no comeback. It would be amazing. And this is quite good for me, because I just say things. If I'm in a stress situation and, you know, I'm talking to somebody I don't particularly like, I don't mean to, but it exits my mouth at high velocity. I can't help it. So that would be a boon for me.
Yeah, that's kind of intellectual Tourette's, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not always that intellectual. I find sometimes just out and out insulting. So
oh God. I'm actually not too bad at that. I'm very good at promoting people. And then I just slag them when they've gone to the newest person.
I need to learn that subtle art. So, I mean, we've sitting here kind of like throwing shade at poetry in general. And so my next question, you know, that I've got on my show notes is probably, I feel like I already know the answer to this. Like, do we think like that we still need these egalitarian spaces, these new ideas, and do we need more poetry buses? Do we need more of these magazines? Because I tend to find that what happens is, you know, something new will come out and it'll be new and exciting, it'll be great, and then gradually you'll see it being absorbed. It gets Arts Council funding and it's sucked in. And the great thing about Poetry Bus, of course, is that it never has been.
Yes. Yeah. You know, honest to God, the number of times I've cursed the Irish Arts Council, as I call them, but really it's fantastic that we've never got funded. We do fund it, which is like a public kind of platform for raising money for projects. And it's kind of like the people want you. And until the people don't want us, we'll keep going. And some of the magazines that get handed huge checks every year, and you think, well, what the fuck are they doing with that money? And there's no kind of, they almost don't earn it. It becomes like a rolling kind of taken for granted kind of just keeping things establishment, and they're not going to rock the boat. We'll just keep giving them 67,000 euros a year. And it's so boring and staid and stagnant. And the danger is when you do something different and it slowly gets absorbed into the mainstream and it suddenly isn't edgy anymore. And we've been lucky, but they fucking hate us. So they really at any cost don't want us involved at any level. And that really has kept us going, because we're no further on than the day we started, really, in terms of, you know, cracking it and being one of the gang. So I think that's a huge compliment to us. It's probably the biggest compliment that we've never even got close to getting funded. Never even sometimes I even in my wildest dreams contacted them and asked, you know, about funding, and they even directed me to the wrong kind of funding, so that when I did apply, it was immediately rejected. And I thought, well, if that isn't a message, then, you know. And now I'm glad we haven't dirtied our pockets. We haven't got a single filthy lucre coin in our pocket. It's all pure.
That's a great way of looking at it.
Having said that, if anybody wants to give us any filthy lucre or stolen money or forged checks, yes, I'll take them. Yeah. Thank you.
I have some chocolate money. I think that's about left over for Christmas. I think that's probably about my limit. I kind of feel
it's got to be worth more than the euro.
Yeah. Or the pound even. Yay. As we slowly, I mean, because we're just living on Plague Island now. I think, you know, kind of berries are going to be the new currency. Yes. Maybe human teeth or fingernails are going to be the new
like the old days.
Like the old.
You could sell your hair because you keep cutting it.
Exactly. Or just sort of, it'll be fine. You know.
Yeah. A kidney. What's a kidney? You know. You don't need
two. You don't need two of anything, do you? Really?
No. Eyes.
Because the eye patch is a good look.
It is. Madonna, really, you know, she just made that, actually she made it awful, didn't she? She put you off an eye patch.
She put you off. Like Shane McGowan and James Joyce, both with eye patches.
That's what, now you're talking. Yes.
Yeah, I can kind of picture them together in the same party, and like, you know, one of them is like, well, one of us is now going to have to go and change. It's not going to be me.
Can you imagine flouncing out?
Yeah.
In Shane's case, kind of wobbling out.
Yeah, rolling like a kind of cheese. But yeah, these are the things that run through my mind when I'm, you know, this is what, you know, higher education does to a person.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wanted to talk a bit about it as well. So it's like this isn't going to be an elegant segue. This is just going to be some questions because I've had too much coffee. You've obviously, because you write as well, you write your own work, you write your own poetry, which we will come to anon. But how do you find, because I've been editing, and what I find about editing is that it eats all of your time and it's extremely stressful, and then you want to throw things out the window, and then you're coming to the page to write your own work, you don't have that much left.
Yes.
How have you found that process, or has it been much better for you, much kind of more joyful?
It's been grand. I kind of think in a way because we don't get funding, ironically enough, the magazine doesn't come out that often. Our ambition was to be 3 times a year, and it kind of turns out to be more or less an annual event, you know. And also I have the luxury of having Colette, who is brilliant, brilliant at helping me choose the poems, because, to be honest, can I be honest? I don't even really like poetry. So, and Colette kind of does.
It's a shocker.
She doesn't write it, but she can read, she's a good reader of poetry. And I'm really not, like, I'll read the first line, that's shite, or I don't know. But anyway, she's a huge help. So, and we do it really intensely. We just, because like we won't let anybody wait more than a week. We just steamroll through it. So it's like, you see these films where people have their tie loosened and cigarettes piling up in the thing, and they're sweating and opening windows and calling for more coffee. And we just steamroll right through it. And it works, because I think sometimes you can over-examine a poem. We kind of go for the gut reaction, and if it hits you between the eyes, and and it works. She's brilliant at that, and I've forgotten the question now. So yeah, it doesn't affect my writing at all, because my writing is nothing to do with me. It's just there. It's like this third leg that just has its own existence, and every now and again it just come and kick me in the arse, and write this here, listen to this, what do you think of this? And I just write it, and I'm always drunk. I've never written a poem sober, so I write them usually late at night, and quite often now I write them directly onto Facebook, because it feels like I'm communicating with the world, which I'm not, because everybody's normal and in bed. But I can't physically write now with a pen. And I used to only be able to do it on the keyboard, and now I can only do it on Facebook. I can only write a poem on Facebook. So I post them, and then I have no clue about them. And I get up the next day and I look at them, and it's like reading somebody else's work. And I usually think, well, that's shit, but it's done.
That's quite amazing.
No problem.
That's quite amazing. The idea that you then rediscover them the next day, and they're like messages to yourself. I mean, not a clue, genuinely not a clue why.
No.
I kind of wish that I could do that more with my own work. I feel like
yours is too it's just too meticulous and too beautifully wrought, and every line and every syllable and every that's a different ball game. I'm Barnet FC and you're in Barcelona. Well, not Barcelona now, but who's good now? I don't know. Fucking the French team, PSG.
I'm more kind of like, I don't know, I always say like I'm the Millwall FC of like the London poetry circuit, in that no one likes me, no one likes me, no one likes me. I don't care.
Yeah. We don't care. Yeah.
We don't care. Yeah. But it's kind of like the idea. I'm really into that idea now, that you can sort of just forget and step away from your work. But I carry mine around now like barnacles, and I remember, and I will be on the train going somewhere weeks hence into the future, and I will remember something I did wrong, and there'll be like a really clunking line, or I think, I'm sure I misspelt that, and it will just stay with me, and it eats at me. It's like, it's
torture.
It's like water torture.
That's torture. Who was the fella that put in a full stop and then took it out in the afternoon or something? Was that Beckett or Joyce?
Yeah, I think it's Beckett.
Yeah, all day doing, I don't know, a comma, and then in the afternoon took it out again. I know. Just first thought, best thought for me, and it's like a vomit.
Yeah.
It literally is like a vomit, and you don't want to delve around in a vomit. You just want to get it up, get it out, and then leave it alone.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I sort of, you never get tempted to think, oh, that's really great, I'm going to go back and just kind of like finesse that and fart around with that and kind of play with that? No,
it would ruin it.
It would ruin it.
Well, I mean, you couldn't ruin it, but you wouldn't make it any better. You wouldn't make it. I wouldn't make it any better. Let's put it that way. Obviously, if there's a huge grammatical error in it, which there often is, I'll correct that. But no, there's no rewriting or rethinking. It's just, I think, well, that's it. That's what it is.
That's a good way to think about things. This will be helpful to you as an editor as well. Just, you know, kind of not over editing things. Yeah, not fiddling around with it, not tinkering with someone else's art, which is
you're really a bit of a fiddler.
Oh, I am. I'm a compulsive. I can't help it. That'll be on my gravestone. That will be. Yeah, I'm terrible. But because the manuscript for Hyena is just like, I've been kind of.
Yeah, you were saying.
These poems are going in, these poems are going out. And Sid Nye, he's like, I will chop your hands off if you touch that again. I will. I'm like, but I've got these other poems and I want to take these ones out. Like, I think in my back of my mind though, there's always like, it's like, well, there'll always be another book. And I'm like, yeah, but will there? Society might collapse. I might be living out of a cave. You know, this might be my last time to do something well. I might die. I might get hit by a number 95 bus. You know, we don't know there's going to be another book.
Yeah. I suppose you never know, you know, you don't know, do you? It could just end overnight. I don't think so. You're very prolific, aren't you?
Yeah.
It just keeps coming. So
insulting.
I mean, who knows? You might never write again. From now, you might be finished, Fran.
This could be it.
Reached your apotheosis or whatever.
The interviewers, we've peaked now.
Yes, this is it.
The moment. This is the pinnacle.
Yeah, I'm going to my grave. I'm going straight to my grave from this interview.
Yeah, Manny's ready to kind of like wrap me in winding sheets and roll me out the door. He's looking like, yeah, I can inherit your sandwich. That's.
I tell you, that's a big inheritance for a dog.
And it's a big inheritance. So yeah, but you have written. You've somehow managed, despite this like very kind of chaotic, ephemeral approach, you have managed to write 2 collections of poetry, Jewel and The Death of Poetry, and they are very different books. They're very tonally, they're very different. They feel very different. So I wonder if you could just like talk a little bit about the kind of the impetus for both of those and the kind of the difference and the process and what happened between Jewel and The Death of Poetry, because The Death of Poetry is we will address this on its own terms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the thing that happened between Jewel and The Death of Poetry was poetry itself, funnily enough. Because the first book, like, I wrote poems before I read any. I still have written more poems than I've read, barring submissions to the magazine. I'm not really hugely interested in poetry. I don't like it. I don't like the manners of it. I don't like the ethos of it. I don't like the social niceties of it. I know that's like saying you don't like colour because there's so many colours and variations and shades, but the way I saw poetry was foisted on me. I generated towards music because music to me spoke. There was poetry in music, and also I recognized everything that was in songs, because I'll be honest, most songs, great songwriters are working class. Whereas most poets are middle class. And Bougainvillea, I didn't even know what Bougainvillea was. Persephone, who the fuck's Persephone? And all this, you know, it just meant nothing to me. So I had no interest in it. And yet I wrote things. I wouldn't even argue that my stuff is poetry, but it was just trying to express myself. And I love words. I really adore words. And I think that's one of the main reasons I love your poetry, is because of your language, your words, you know. And I mean, half of them have me reaching for the dictionary because they're quite, I don't know what they are. I don't know where you get them from. Like, do you make them up, or is there a Fran LockWe dictionary, you know, in the library or something? But, you know, I love all that. And I just love expressing myself, and I love writing, but I don't really love poetry, and I've forgotten the question again.
Yeah. What happened between Jewel and The Death of Poetry? Because Jewel is in some ways it's you know, it's nice. It's lovely, it's very tender and empathetic and very giving, and but also kind of like very grounded. And then I feel like there was a defining incident, and then what happened? You say it was poetry itself, and that kind of that milieu. And that's like, that kind of like just the way people are.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with poetry. I didn't have a clue how it worked. I might as well be looking at the insides of a computer or the Hadron Collider or something. It's just, I don't know. But because I wrote that book, and really that was kind of my autobiography, and like Jesus, what age was I? I was well into my 40s anyway, so I'd lived all my life, and huge material, but kind of eclectic and varied, and a mishmash, a scattergun thing of this, that, and the other. And it was grand, but it did get published. It got taken up by Salmon, and they published it. And then that kind of brought me into the poetry world. And by Christ, I didn't like it. It was fucking awful. Just horrendous. And the next book was all about how much I hate the poetry world, really, pretty much. I mean, I'm fairly misanthropic at the best of times, and general kind of miserable bastard that hates everybody, but I reserve a special hatred for poets. Not all poets, present company accepted, and this, that, and the other. But it was kind of and I felt I was treated very badly by the poetry world and in the poetry world, because I wasn't educated. I hadn't gone to Trinity. I wasn't middle class. I wasn't an accountant or a teacher, or I don't know. And there was other people like me, and they fitted the working class or the middle class idea of what a working class person should be much better. And they were kind of let in because I'm not going to degrade the way they are or who they are, but to me, they were kind of a stereotypical working class person, and usually Dublin, and that was so boring, and yet they lapped it up. And because I thought, like me, they wanted to change the poetry scene. But really, they just wanted to get into it, and that was the difference. I didn't want to get into the poetry scene like the magazine and everything. I wanted to change things, and they just wanted in, and they got in because they just ticked a very, very stereotypical box, and I didn't. And it's been awful for me, and I did care. Now I don't give a shit, but at the time I cared, and it hurt, and I used to worry about it, and now I don't give a damn. Like, I've lost my publisher. I don't care. I'm free. I can say and do what I want, and I don't have to tick any boxes. I don't have to conform. And if I don't like something, I can just say I don't like that. I don't like the Irish Arts Council. I mean, what are they going to do? Not give me the grant that they haven't given me for the last fucking 50? I don't care. They're rubbish. They're middle class. They're ruled by people who have ruled, they always rule. The great division in life, there is race, there is gender, but for me, the fundamental overarching distinction is class. It's there from the beginning. It'll be there till the end. Like in Irish poetry, it was hugely male dominated, terribly, awfully. But now it's hugely female dominated, terribly, awfully. But they're all middle class. They were middle class men, and now they're middle class women. So in some ways, the plus a change. I'm still fucking out of it either which way. Gender is what it is. But I think generally the real divide, because things will change with gender, and they are changing, and that's great. That's really good. But the thing that will never change is class and class distinction.
Absolutely. And I think it's also very easy for people to ignore and to pretend that it's not happening. And I think that's the thing with class, is that it's not visible in the way that race is visible. It's not visible in the way that gender is visible. So it becomes very easy for people to say, oh, well, now with social mobility and relative deprivation, like, we don't have a class system anymore. We don't have a class system. Like, you, as a person who is working class and has kind of like tried to exist in these kind of like elite cultural space, yeah, you do. You absolutely do. You're just on top, so you don't see it.
Yes.
It's only invisible to you because shit rolls downhill.
Yes.
It's very, very frustrating. And I think that they do, it's so true what you say, that they like the working classes if those working classes are comfortably conforming to the image they have in their head of something they saw in a kind of Ken Loach box set once.
Yes.
And I think if you're doing that, not that there is anything wrong with being or doing that, but it's that to the exclusion of anything else. And so if you come at them and you know more big words than they do, and you know more Latin than they do, and you've read the Bible and you've read, they don't like it. They really don't like it. This has also
No.
been my experience.
Yeah. It's like does not compute, does not compute.
Yeah,
Exterminate, exterminate.
revolving like the kind of like the Daleks when you put a magnet on them, you know, like oh, and their head exploding. Yeah, so this is I think we've got sort of like a similar rage about like the establishment, and there are good individual people
Yeah.
toiling away within these enclaves, but I think, you know, even the good ones, it's become so naturalized that this is just the way it works. That's just poetry. I had someone at a reading say once, like he was reading his poems and he was talking about, you know, some terribly middle class thing that he'd done. He's like, oh well, you know, we're all middle class here. I'm like, no, we're not. No, we're not. We don't all have nectar cards and kitchen islands and quilted gilets. You know, we're not all you, mate.
Yeah.
The implied audience for all art is not a middle class person.
Oh. But it's taken for granted that it is. I was even, well, unfortunate enough that I wasn't listened to. I came across on Radio 4, like Keats was 200 years dead or something. And they were trying to argue this case that he was like a rebel and he was different and he was anti-authoritarian and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And they're going on, I mean, what did he die at, 25 or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, he was very young.
You know, and then on his first voyage to Italy, I thought, hang on a minute, fucking first voyage to Italy. I haven't been to Italy, I'm 59. You know, immediately I thought, yeah, you might be a bit of a this, that, and that, but you're middle class, you're privileged. I don't know how privileged you watch, but if you're going to Italy, and when was it, like 200 years ago?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, there's that little attitude, and things like Poetry Ireland and whatever the canon is, they will only pick that kind of thing that references foreign villages and middle class little tick notes, you know, and I don't recognize them. I don't know them. But I never see any working class tick notes and little references, you know, that mean things to me by doing music all the time, constantly. So why is poetry like the way it is? Because you do get middle class music. Why can't we have working class poetry? And I know there is a little bit, but the canon, the meat, you know, the essence of it is always middle class.
Yeah. And it sucks, I think, because, you know, poetry, I always think that poetry is made for the working classes, because all you need to do it, you just need a pen and you need 5 minutes. And anyone can do it. So it irritates me. It drives me nuts that it's been colonized in this way. And I feel like it's been stolen. And I feel like I love poetry, but I feel like poetry has been stolen and then it's been warped and distorted out of all shape and proportion. And now I no longer recognize a thing I loved.
Yeah, it's like this font of beautiful, clear water, and somebody comes along and puts it into Evian bottles or something, and distributes it that way. Well, you know, let's all have a drink.
Exactly.
Just cup your hands and dip in.
Exactly. And I kind of, definitely. And it is frustrating, because then it's sold back to you as well. And I think the sort of irritating thing is, and I get kind of like begging letters from like massive magazines, you know, like they've published me in the past and they're like, you want to give us some money? I'm like, no, because I don't have any money. Don't, you know, this is an inclusive space. And we've had such artists I genuinely had like a begging letter once that listed me on the thing. Oh, and we've offered a platform to working class artists such as, and there's my name. And I'm like, no, you're asking me for money. I'm like,
payback time.
Yeah, like, thanks, mate. No, I'll give money so you can keep publishing all these disadvantaged people such as me. Yeah, cheers for that. That's amazing. It's kind of, it is
mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling, right? And speaking of mind-boggling, so I think you're going to read to us from the
I'll try.
Poetry.
I'm very bad at reading. I've got terrible diction. I'm just awful at reading. Like literally, I can barely read. Like grade 7 or something. Janet and John, book 6.
Is that the title of the next collection? Yeah. Janet and John talk to the Irish Arts Council.
Oh God. Jesus. So will I just read them then?
Yeah, just read them. I mean, as many as you feel you want or need to. You can introduce them if you want to, and then when you've had enough, you can
Yeah.
call time.
Well, the good thing about them is they're very short, so
Yeah.
they won't take long. I've 5 down, but she can cut them out. Anyway, the first one is called Poetry, and it goes, you were a good mother. You slapped our face hard, hammered nails through hands and feet, pierced our side with a double-edged sword, then dutifully packed the red raw wounds with the feathers of dead songbirds, knowing when we grew but stunted, strong, twisted, untamed, we could never just stand idly by and sweetly, gently sing. The second one is called Burning Desire. We burned the witches, the peasant cottages, our bridges, the turf, the breakfast, our winter skin under the summer skies. We burned diesel, petrol, money. We burned down the road. We burned bright under the dark clouds. We burned chances like confetti. Everything we ever had, wanted, needed, went up in smoke. Our lives, the next generation, their futures, everything in lusting lick of flame, except the bondholders.
Oh,
The third one is called, Where Am I? I Can't Find You. Oh, The Death of Poetry, Part 7.
The Death of Poetry.
And the revolutionary Christs are now fucking the nuns, hands across the divide they made, filling up their pockets for another plane ride. It's for everyone when they're selling, just for themselves when someone's buying. We lepers on the raft of the Medusa are well aware of this mal de mer. Before you drown, come on down. Look what you could have won. The vegetarians eating meat, the virgins giving it so sweet for the second, fifth, seventh time, the egoist philanthropists coining it in, the ship's captain keeping away from the gin, the second in command holding up his innocent hands as another player hits the ground hard. Shake it up, me lords and ladies, with your trains of gravies, with your snakes and ladders, clean livers, empty bladders. We'll have another round before the delicious vapor girls fake another poem for the glory boys, who won't go home to their wives till the next time. The next one is called Bland Ambition. They don't drink, they do. They don't look back in anger. Fuck, I've done that wrong. Can I do it again?
You can definitely do it again. Yeah, that's all right. No worries.
The next one is called Bland Ambition. They don't drink, they do. They look back in anger, they don't. They never look down except their noses. They are the educated young things, prefer their socialism sanitized, right of center. Behold them blowing on blooming champagne-style flutes of their preciously acceptable thoughts, neatly contrived for balm, not shock, like tiny flowers placed carefully beside rough sleepers or forgotten headstones. See their sharp little teeth, so white, so clean, so good, would never bite the hand that feeds. Ambition looks to the skies, craves only the glittering prize. The only way is up, 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 their own arses. And the final one is the bourgeoisie. Everything here for the last 6-7 years has been gorgeous. Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh, that's gorgeous. A gorgeous poem. That's a gorgeous book. Oh, you look gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. You think there was no other descriptive word in the dictionary. So this is called, but it's only a certain type that was coining the word. Anyway, it's called a bourgeoisie, which is kind of like gorgeous and bourgeois. Anyway, the bourgeoisie. Oh, yes. And then lovely, gorgeous, in fact. Delighted, absolutely. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Did you see me? Oh, and then the other thing, so wonderful. Wunderbar, sehr glücklich. It was we, of course, us, the few. We are so good to each other. It's the arts, you know, so egalitarian. You wouldn't believe. Everyone, several of us, are so supportive, welcoming, open to all of us. Isn't that the way it should be? Inclusive? Yes. We include each other tout le temps. And the working classes, the lovely ethnic minorities, we love those. Never met any yet, but yes, do come on in. Over there somewhere, a bit further back, a bit further, no, a bit further, bit more, perfect. Can you still see us? Don't we look just gorgeous?
Yes, that is actually like readings I have been to. Sit at the back there. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I feel invigorated. It's like it's
cool.
8 o'clock in the evening. I'm ready to go outside and punch someone in the face.
Yes, the nearest Tory.
Yeah, punch the nearest Tory. You don't have to look very far around here, sadly. They're quite
or landlord.
Yeah, or landlord waddling about. Their pocket stuffed with other people's money.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, but thank you so much for sharing those with us. And where can people buy those? There's a website where they're still available to buy the Death of Poetry and Jewel.
They are all sold out.
They are all
apart
sold
from Jewel, which
Jewel.
is at Salmon's. Don't bother buying that because I won't get any money.
Okay. To print some more, I need some more Death of Poetry. I should just photocopy all the pages and scan them and distribute them amongst the urban poor, because I feel it's the book that poetry really needs, and I feel that it will try to ignore it to death because it's not very good at hearing criticism of itself. It says it says it likes it, but it doesn't.
Yeah, thanks very much. That's really nice to hear. That's what I was hoping,
Yeah. I think, people should read it in the spirit in which it was intended, like a Millwall brick to the face.
Yes.
But it should be the prompt. It should be the prompt to change. You can't shoot the messenger, you need to realize that you do these things, and that most of us to a certain level are, kind of culpable, and we're complicit in some of these behaviors. We've all, I think it's like, I'm not very good at it, but I think even in my own slightly shambolic way, I've probably been nice to somebody that I really wanted to push down the stairs for no other reason than I thought, well, they edit such and such a magazine, and you need to be true to yourself. Otherwise, it's only yourself you've got at the end of the day, and they're not going to let you in anyway.
No, but I mean, it's easy for me because, like, there's nothing there anyway. I'm not some kind of hero who's given up a glittering career. It's nothing. So it is easy. I'd love to be tempted. If somebody really wants to sorely tempt me with something, then we'll see how noble I am.
Yeah, but I still think, I don't know. I like to think that you would nobly refuse the plate of proffered. I don't know what you'd offer in poetry: pineapples on sticks, little vol au vents.
Oh God, yeah, Jesus, I'd love it. I'd love something on a stick. Somebody's head, preferably.
Yeah. Head on a platter, yeah. Yes. I can see you sort of doing a kind of like, Christ-like renunciation of poetry riches. I mean, that there aren't really, you sort of talk about like a glittering career in poetry. I think for maybe 5 people that actually exists.
Yeah.
Everybody else is just kidding themselves. It's like all the working class people voting Tory in the hope that one day they're going to be the people oppressing us, and then we'd better look out, like, oh, really? Yeah. Oh, really? That's never going to happen.
The ultimate tragedy. What are they keeping us out of? What are they keeping to themselves? It's a hill of beans.
Yeah.
So that's the really mystical thing. Yeah. But I think, although, I don't know, they must have some kind of need, or is it some kind of, not philosophical, but intellectual need to think they're superior? Yeah. Is that what it is? Poetry is superior, so it's for superior people. Is that what it is? I don't know. They don't want it sullied.
Yeah, it's very pure. It's this kind of like, this very kind of like pure artistic realm. But they don't like politics either. So I think if you're doing work that is kind of like explicitly and aggressively political, they get very upset. Well, that's just a polemic. That's not even really poetry. And you're like, oh, go fuck yourself,
Yes, they don't want any boats rocked.
The
status quo, the easy, queasy choice, as I call it.
Exactly. Well, we could have this conversation. We could literally have this conversation all night, couldn't we, really?
It's the sort of conversation you need to have in a pub.
It is. I do miss that. I mean, I don't drink, but I do miss I miss sitting in a circle of people and getting really, really angry about something that none of us are going to remember, not even me, in the morning. You know,
but you'll fight to death over it at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And we all agree with each other, but we'll still get really, really angry. And
oh yeah, the more you agree, the worse it is.
Yeah.
The more on the same level. It's easy to argue with an arsehole, but argue with a friend, you can really get your teeth into it.
I know, Simon loves it. It's like Sid's favourite thing is like picking a fight with somebody that agrees with him. And just going at it for hours, recreationally for hours. And you know, you can go, you can leave the room, you can make a sandwich, you can come back, and they're still at
it. It's like EastEnders.
Yeah. Well, comforting in the way, you know, just to kind of leave it on in the background. Yeah.
Very familiar.
Yeah.
Familiar violence and anger. The comfort of violence and anger.
Exactly. There you go. There's a line. There we are. We need that.
Yes.
The comfort of violence and anger. Right, I'm going to stop recording in a minute, so I just want to say thank you again for joining me and reading your poems and ranting, and you know, we hope that may they all burn in their beds. Yes. May the rich burn in their beds.
Yeah, maybe we need to get the matches.
Yeah.